We are gathered here today to immortalize in song the life and untimely death of a great legend. Relax and enjoy your low-calorie snacks, corn and popcorn, while we tell you the strange and bewildering tale of a tale.
So a quick rundown of what happened when I found that car. I was a younger man, I guess. I was in my late teens, early 20s, somewhere around there. Can't quite remember. I was working at a client's house, and that vehicle had been sitting in his pasture for years. And he wanted to get rid of all the vehicles back there. He was going to take them to the dump yard. So I said, well, what's the deal with the RX-7? And he said, I have no idea, actually. Someone just drove it in the pasture one day and never came back for it. So the vehicle, no one knew where it came from or what had happened to it. They just knew that someone had dumped it in this pasture, and it had been sitting there since the late 80s. And I said, well, do you mind if I take it? How much you want for it? And he said, it's not even mine. You can have it, but you have to track down the original owner. So begins this story of finding and tracking down this little old lady that lives about an hour away from me. She had originally purchased that car. She was the first person, bought it brand new off the lot, and she was driving it when she was going back and forth. She had just gotten out of college, and she was driving it when she got her first job. When somewhere along those times, early 90s, late 90s, something like that, either her cousin or her daughter, I can't quite remember, had a boyfriend. And the boyfriend took the car, and he's the one who actually destroyed the transmission in it. He was driving way too fucking fast, and then went from, I can't remember, he slammed it in reverse, I think, and tried to destroy it. So what had happened was, reverse was completely gone, shredded, actually chunks of metal coming out of it. So the boyfriend destroys the car, and so the boyfriend that had gotten a hold of the car destroyed it on the transmission and didn't know what to do. So he, in the, like I said, late 80s, early 90s or whatever, drives down this dirt road, pulls into an old ranch that looked abandoned, and drives back into the pasture and parks it and hitchhikes his way back into town, and that's where it sat. It sat there for God knows how many years. No one ever touched it. No one ever did anything to it until I came around. And believe it or not, I went out there in the pasture, and God knows, since 85, brand new, original, same tires that were on it, those tires pumped up and held air, and we towed it back to my house and actually got it to fire and turn over about 15 minutes after pulling it out of the pasture. So I was pretty ecstatic. We got that thing to turn over and fire it up, and even drove it around the cul-de-sac real quick and found out, of course, that the transmission was shot. I only had like 1 through 3 on it. That was it. Everything else was shot in it. So ended up started taking it apart, and that's when I did all the work to it that I just mentioned in my message. And but I had to track down the title, and I ended up finding it via the VIN number. Was able to track down this lady who lives about an hour from me, and I went and met her, and she gave me a stipulation. She said that she hadn't seen that car in forever, and she wanted to drive it, she wanted to take a ride in it once I got it finished, and that was how much she charged me. She was just going to give it to me for free, sign over the title, as long as I'd give her a ride in the car when I got it done and up and operational. Sadly, as you know, that time never came, and I'm not certain whatever happened to her. I'm sure if I looked it up, I could find her name. I don't even know if she's still alive now, but I wasn't able to, give back on that promise. But to sign over a title, you have to have a monetary, transaction. So I ended up paying her $20. That's all she asked. What was in my wallet, and I had a $20 bill, and she took the $20 and signed over the title to me. And so, yeah, I pulled that car out of a pasture that had been sitting there for God knows how many fucking decades, and gave the woman $20 for it. And I had it ever since until Jarrett came along. And I would have never sold it. I would have always kept it and had it as a plan to work on with, me and my son eventually. But after this Corona shit was going on, prior to that and everything, I had some financial issues and ended up having to let it go so that I could pay some bills. And Jarrett came down and he purchased it from us. But most of the parts that were on it that have been replaced, I've replaced them. I've been under and around and all over that damn car and just about torn apart anything I can get my hands on and do it. Now, I'm not the most tech savvy when it comes to vehicles. I'm sure you know way more than I do. But I gave it my holy hell best and replaced just about anything I could unbolt and replace it. So there's quite a bit in that car that's actually been redone, reworked, or cleaned up and got to working, properly after what my dad and I did. So when you tell the story, little old lady from South Dakota bought it brand new, had a relative steal the car, blow up the transmission, parked it in a pasture in the middle of nowhere, and it sat there for fucking decades until I came along. I did my best to revive it, and then Jarrett took it, he did his work on it, and then now she's on to you. So it's got a bit of a history to it. It's a badass little car, so definitely take care of her. If you would, for me, just do me proud, man. I want to see her run. That was a lifelong passion right there. I wanted to see her run and just never got to do it. So definitely appreciate it. Definitely thank you for reaching out to me. Super